appreciate you coming in the weight room. It's good to
thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Came into your domain about a month ago now, I guess. So good to get you into mine finally. Get to chat about fitness and nutrition, something that obviously the fitness side I talk about a lot, but the nutrition side not as much, just specifically, as well as your teaching and things like that. Definitely really looking forward to diving into all that kind of stuff. When did you actually get into fitness? How and why and all that kind of stuff?
So I started at U of L right after high school. My major was exercise science. I thought for sure that I was going to do physical therapy. I was really good at it, did really well, finished, and it was not what I wanted to do. It just wasn't for me. And so I started working in the hospital. I just had always thought healthcare was where my heart was going to be at. That's what I was going to do. So I worked in the hospital, worked at Norton for 9 years, and over that time just went through a lot and gained a lot of weight myself. And then the pandemic hit, and there was pretty much really nothing to do but workout. So I lost about 60 pounds, and I helped my sister in Texas. We would video chat. I would work out with her, help her with what she ate. And she was like, "You're really good at this. You should do this. This is what you need to be doing." So also during COVID, I got certified through NASM for personal training and with nutrition. And I started working at Home Fit, which is now Body Solutions, as a personal trainer. I absolutely loved it. I will say it is very mentally and emotionally exhausting. And to really thrive in that industry, you have to say yes to everybody. My days would start at 6 a.m. and wouldn't finish until 9. And with it being Home Fit, we did a lot of in-home training. So I was traveling a lot, and it was just exhausting. So as much as I loved it, I was like, this is not sustainable to do full-time for me. And one of my former teachers that actually taught the class that I teach now posted that, hey, my job is available. I think you would be great at it. And I was like, well, my degree's not in teaching. She was like, it doesn't matter as long as you have a bachelor's degree. And so it was at the end of July. I applied on a Wednesday, interviewed on a Friday, got hired on a Monday, and then started that Thursday. So it was a very quick process for me as far as teaching, getting into teaching goes. And this is my first year doing it. And I'm glad it's summertime now.
Such a quick transition from one thing to the other. I mean, did it even give you time, honestly, even to think about it, to process what was happening?
No, it didn't at all. Everybody's when I would tell my friends and family, oh, I'm going to be a teacher, they would be like, you're going to do what? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to teach. And high school isn't an easy thing to teach. So it has been the craziest ride I think I've ever been on as far as career goes. And I'm somebody who likes to really promote that, you can do multiple things that you love. You don't have to find one thing that you're good at and just stick with it your whole life. I'm 32 and have done multiple careers, and I'm and that's okay. It's okay to do different things throughout your life.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially in today's world where there's so many, not just so many opportunities, but also so many people looking for people. You can pretty much go anywhere and be like, I want to work here. And they're like, please do,
Oh,
so.
Absolutely. It really helped that I had a background in nutrition to be able to teach that. And honestly, it's by far my most favorite job and most rewarding that I've had.
In high school, in college, was teaching, did you ever think I'm the teacher type? Not that necessarily would even be a teacher, but I love school or, anything like that.
It's so funny because I told my mom I was going to be a forever student because even after, graduating college, I went and did the medical coding route. And then after that, it was personal training. I was like, I'm just going to be a forever student. So when I did become a teacher, finally, she's like, you weren't lying about being a forever student. You're always going to be at school now. I was like, absolutely.
Being a student really of any length of time, you get this idea of what being a student is and how it's really predicated on what everybody else is trying to tell you. And then when you get out into the world and you need to learn something, it's so interesting how all of a sudden, like, you get to choose what that is, and you get to figure out how you're going to learn it. Is it going to be through, a mentorship? Is it going to be through an internship? Or am I literally just going to go online and learn something through Google, YouTube? ChatGPT now is an interesting way to learn things, and kind of in a very really choose your own format kind of way. But having those skills to be able to teach, or be able to teach yourself and learn, I mean, how much of that, because you kind of feel like you are that forever student, do you try to like implement within your classes?
Well, even just taking on the teacher role, like, I had to teach myself how to teach, because that's not something I went to school for. So just trying to figure out how to connect with these kids. And like, I was a good student, so I had that mindset that like most of these students are going to be good students, and that's not necessarily the case. Like, they don't have like the organization skills, the study skills. So just connecting with them, and I'm very big on making sure that I implement all learning styles in my lessons so that I don't leave out any of these students. Like, I make sure that, to reach every single one of them, like, as best as I can.
Like, when you're planning something, how do you kind of make sure that you do that? Just for those who aren't teachers out there, like, when you say learning styles, kind of tell us a little bit more about that.
So everybody has a different learning style, whether that's visual, auditory, hands-on. So I make sure that I incorporate those different learning styles into my lessons. And from when maybe we were students in high school, they're very different. They've gone through the pandemic that has really hindered them. So their attention span is maybe 15 minutes max. So I make sure that like my lecture style is no more than that, because they're going to check out. So not, talking too much to them, and giving them like a hands-on activity, or a video for them to watch. That way I hit all those bases for them.
Thinking back about my education, high school and college, probably more specifically, get into those like lectures that just go on and on and on, and you don't really get a chance to like think or do anything. You're just trying to remember and write down and all that kind of stuff. With kids now, do you feel like, you said like 15 minutes. What would you kind of like give us an example of like, okay, there's 15 minutes here you're lecturing, and then, for the next 15 minutes, is it just like, let's talk about it, let's think about it, let's write thoughts about it? Like, how do you take that next step?
So our class is about 45 minutes long. So the first 15 minutes, it's us going over the new material, and then there is usually like an activity that goes with it. So I want to apply everything that I just told you and make sure that you understood what I'm saying and it makes sense to you and you get it, and apply it with this activity, whether that activity is something hands-on that you do, whether it's a writing assignment, whatever that is. I want to make sure that what I've taught, you understand and you can apply it. I'm very big on real world applications. And so I try to relay everything back to something that they can use in everyday use. In
nutrition, I mean, it's almost like a no-brainer, the application.
You would think that, but they're not really all that interested in nutrition at that age. Like, it hasn't hit them that like what they put in their body actually matters. So even if they just take a little bit out of that semester from me, like I'm happy. Yeah. And I know one day like it'll come back to them and they're going to be like, oh man, I remember Miss Allen talking about this, but maybe I should have listened a little more. So
yeah. And I think at that age too, it's about introducing people to concepts and ideas. And so when they do, like, you run into a problem in life or you run into a situation in life, and if you have that back there somewhere, you can pull from it, and that's the cool thing about having nutrition classes or, any kind of like, I don't want to say alternative class, but like in a way it kind of is an alternative class. But there's a lot of people out there who've never had any education on that, no classes, nothing. And they run into a problem and they literally have no solution to it. In their brain, it's like, well, I guess we're just stuck here.
I think another thing that they like is with our class, we cook at least once a week. And I'm no chef by any means. Like, I have some embarrassing cooking stories. So when I found out I was going to have to teach them how to cook, I was so nervous about that.
Did you start like trying to teach yourself more?
No.
Okay.
But like I would have them cook stuff, and like I would hear a couple weeks later, like, oh, I made, the acai bowl that, you taught us how to make in here. I made that for my dad. And I'm just like, oh, okay. So you all are listening and you are learning something, like, yeah, fantastic.
Right. I mean, cooking for me is definitely still probably one of my weakest points. I have learned a lot over the last year just about the basics of boiling water. So,
well, you probably know more than some of them knew. Like, they didn't know you could make ramen noodle on the stove.
But, just imagine, like, having more kids comfortable in the kitchen, understanding how to cook, understanding even, like, the buying side of food, the ingredient label side of food, like, knowing what they're putting into the food that they are cooking once they do learn that step.
That is one thing that I like, is I know, like, some of the things that the students eat a lot of, I try to teach them how to make it a little bit healthier. So little things are wins for me.
What are some of the favorite things that you found?
So we actually did avocado brownies. Kids love sweets, and they were like, I'm not going to eat that. It has avocado in it. I don't like avocado. And I'm like, guys, avocado is a healthy fat. It just is. It's going to taste just like a brownie. Like, it'll have a little bit different consistency, but you're not going to taste the avocado. And they absolutely loved them. So,
I've never even heard of an avocado brownie.
Now you know. So,
I'll give you the
recipe.
Yeah, that's interesting. Is it just what does it replace?
So you're replacing the oil that you would typically use.
Okay.
So you're like switching out one fat for a healthier fat.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, along the lines of cooking, and you said you weren't really a great chef.
I'm not by any means.
You're still not great.
So many stories. So my family got a big kick out of it when I was like, oh yeah, we're going to cook once a week. They're like, you're going to cook. So I wouldn't say I'm getting better at it, but it has definitely been a fake it till I make it, because they'll be like, Miss Allen, is it supposed to look like this? Oh yeah. I'm like, I don't know. I've never made this before in my life. Like, sure.
Yeah. Just kind of like going along. I think what I found for me is one of the biggest things in cooking was like, I'm going to catch something on fire. I'm going to catch the house on fire. I didn't even care about the food. When I first started, I was like, if the food gets ruined, that's like not the worst case scenario here. I'm more about catching something on fire, setting off an alarm or a sprinkler or something. And then you get more comfortable, and it's like, okay, take a few risks, like, whether that's literal risk of like walking away for a few seconds, like that starts to become more comfortable instead of like hovering over it the whole time, or like throwing something interesting into a food that you've never tried before. Just, small things like that.
They have free lab probably 3 times throughout the semester. And that's when you really get to see like them get more comfortable, because they'll make stuff and I'm like, you wouldn't have made that at the beginning of the semester. So
is it a lot of like recipe following? Like, how do you actually structure that?
So I like to make it to where whatever we're making in the lab that week correlates with what we've been talking about. So if we've talked about protein, we'll do omelets. If we've talked about fats, we'll do the avocado brownie and switch out our unhealthy fat. If we're talking about carbs, it'll be like we'll do a pasta type thing. So I always try to make sure that it correlates with what I'm teaching them.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, how much, especially the first time or first few times free, how much like worry was it? Just like, okay, I have to watch over all these kids.
So we go over kitchen safety. That's probably the first thing we hit. And then when we're actually in the lab, it's knives and knife safety and knife cuts. So they'll make like salad or fruit salad or salsa. That one probably gives me the most anxiety, because there's 30 of them and just one of me. So trying to make sure nobody cuts their fingers. Like, my whole goal every semester is to not give out any Band-Aids. And it's a lot. It's chaos in there.
Was it successful?
Yeah, I haven't had to give out any Band-Aids, so nice. I'm very happy.
It just seems
haven't
like...
had to use the fire alarm or anything, nothing.
Dang. I mean, it just seems like it would almost be a given that it would have to happen, but...
Knock on wood, it has not, thankfully.
And because like kids have like a different, like live in a completely different world now with even than we did with social media, like with TikTok and all that kind of stuff. Do you ever think about like, oh, how are these apps capturing the attention of kids?
So on Free Lab, we actually had a group of students. They made Gigi Hadid's like non-vodka vodka pasta. So they are definitely taking those TikTok recipes and they're wanting to like remake them.
Gotcha. I mean, do you feel like that's a big influence in just like the culture of high school now it's like pretty much social media? Like, because I feel like back in the day, maybe even a slightly, but I would say like in our high school experience and further back, it was like you have like almost a culture of high school within a high school, right? And now I feel like even any grade, but high school's like that age where you start to get a little bit more freedom and stuff. But nowadays, like kids are all almost connected by this singular, like people are doing the same thing everywhere. It's like, okay, this is a TikTok trend. We're all doing this. Does it feel almost like that there's less of like this high school like energy or high school like uniqueness to it?
So for me, like when I was in high school, like you still had to pay to send a text message. These kids are on their phones nonstop. TikTok, Snapchats, they record everything. The silliest things. Like I'll see them take a picture of the floor and send it on Snapchat. And I'm like, what is the point of that? And this is where like I've kind of learned I'm going to incorporate that in there. Okay, you want to make a TikTok? All right, well, we're going to make a TikTok related about nutrition. Like, let's do a food review on what you just cooked. So I just try to actually implement that into the classroom because it was like trying to fight a losing battle with those cell phones. So I'm like, I'm just going to implement it. Like, we're going to make a podcast. You want to talk on the phone? Let's make a podcast.
Yeah.
You want to do a TikTok? Do a TikTok review about all the labs we've made over the summer. Taste test it. So, pick your battles with that.
People talk about like, oh, ChatGPT and similar things are going to ruin education. And to me, it's like, it's probably not going to ruin it. It could actually make it more like valuable for people because, I mean, even for us, like we could Google stuff or we could find it on the internet very easily compared to like our parents. But now it's even easier to just be, give me 50 facts on this and I'll write a paper on it. Whatever that is, or even just write the paper for me. But I don't necessarily even see that as a negative per se. You still have this opportunity to teach kids more than just the X's and O's and like the statistics and the facts of it. You can actually show them like what maybe the ChatGPT can't.
So for me, mine is technology is great in education, but it is also not great. For me, I struggle with them being able to separate themselves for those 15 minutes to give me their attention. And that's the thing that I have the hardest time with the technology. I think it's great. Use that Chromebook, use your resources. But again, I need you to be able to summarize what you read in your own words. I can literally look at that same article and read what you just told me. I need you to be able to read that and be able to summarize it in your own words. And I think that is what the biggest issue is literally separating yourself sometimes from technology.
Yeah.
And being able to use it appropriately. And that's what we have to teach them is how to use it appropriately. And the older generation teachers have a hard time with that.
Yeah.
I will tell you, whenever I have them do a textbook assignment, they hate me. They hate having to read it. They just literally, they can't like basically Google an answer, like they struggle with it. So you just have to make sure you're incorporating everything, like incorporate that technology in there, still incorporate the textbook skills. Like it's not realistic to not ask them to not use their phone. Like I still use my phone. If I don't know something, I'm going to Google it.
Right.
But they still need to be able to like read and be able to summarize what they read.
And like, I remember back in the day, like a math textbook used to like Googling a math answer was just like going to the back of the book, and like what's like.
All the odd answers were in there, but not the even one.
That was like the old school Google of like math. Now you have all this crazy technology. It's crazy. It's amazing how far we've come in even just a few years, 10 more years. What's it going to look like? And I think that's where education itself has to like
evolve,
make a pivot, figure out like, okay, these are the new rules of the world. These are the new ways people are making money. Like how does that? I think that's the question that we have to answer is like how do we teach kids to be more than just like, robots spitting out facts.
Yeah. And another thing with like technology that I always am on them about is especially with social media, is put yourself out there, make those connections. Because I'm like, I have students that, want to go into finance or they want to go into broadcasting. And I'm like, oh, well, I know somebody. Let me get you their information. I'm like, this is what you all need to be using your social media for.
Yeah.
I was like, reach out to those people. Anything that you're interested in, make those connections. Like, actually, like, social network on there.
Social media, like, if you really think about the access you have to people now is insane.
A lot of time is not what you know, it's who you know. I was like, they want you to have experience, so get your experience. But if you know somebody in the line of work that you want to do, reach out to them, shadow them, make sure they know your name, because they're going to be the ones that are going to like excel you and propel you throughout your career.
Yeah. I mean, with podcasts too, like tons of free information. Like if you want to be anything, there's a podcast on like how to do it, people's experiences doing it. I mean, even if you're just trying to figure out if you like something, which is a huge thing in high school, like what am I going to do in, a year to 4 years with my life? What job am I going to take or what degree am I going to go after? A lot of times it's like, oh, I kind of like the idea of that, but I don't necessarily know if I want the day-to-day of that. But, there's nurses who have podcasts. There's, mechanics who have podcasts. There's all kinds of career field people who are going literally over like, oh, what happened today in my job, or here's skills that could be helpful if you can learn them, or, all that kind of stuff.
Everything that they think they may want to do, I'm like, there's probably a podcast, there's probably a YouTube, like, do your research on it. It's
only like becoming more and more accessible to like understand things and like figure them out. But at the same time, it's only becoming more accessible to like be distracted, to use these for entertainment, which is fine sometimes, but not taking it to the extremes. Teaching them how to use social media, like what are some positives that can be used for. I mean, it might sound crazy, but like there's kids in probably any given school, might not be a whole lot, maybe it's one or two, but they're probably going to end up being like social media influencers. And like, it's not the curriculum that you're going to teach because it's not everybody's path, but like how do you at least help that person understand that like this is, if you want that, if that's an interest to you, here's kind of how you can do that. Utilizing tools that are in front of you. It's the same as, how do you read and write? It's just a different kind of literacy. Are you looking for a supplement company that can help take your fitness game to the next level? Look no further than All Sport Pharmaceuticals. Their cutting-edge supplements are scientifically formulated to give you the edge you need in the gym and in life. Whether you're looking to build muscle, increase endurance, or boost recovery time, All Sport Pharmaceuticals has you covered. And with a wide range of products designed for people of all levels, you're sure to find the perfect supplement for your needs. So why wait? Give your body the support it deserves with All Sport Pharmaceuticals. Visit their website today to learn more and start achieving your fitness goals. Yeah, literally just be there, talk to them, help them any type of way that you can, give them any type of resource, and show them how to use that resource. Like, I'm not a teacher. That's not what I went to school for, but I've used my resources, and I am a teacher now. So does it almost feel like you're not a teacher, but you're teaching? Because I sometimes feel like there's teachers who don't truly teach, but their title is a teacher. They're more of just like speaker at a classroom giving information. So when I first started, I was not a teacher. Like, I was terrified, but I know my content. I enjoy my content. So like I said, it's a semester-long class. I don't expect them to remember every single thing that I tell them, but if they take something away from my class, I'm happy. For me, the teaching aspect comes in. Can I relate to them? Are they comfortable with me? Does my classroom feel like home to them? That is what makes me feel like I'm a teacher. Because it doesn't matter what kind of day I've had. It never fails. The next day I have a student, Miss Allen, I need you. And the fact that they can come to me like I'm a teacher. Yeah. If they know how many calories are in 1 gram of protein, yeah, I'm happy. But if they just take one thing from my classroom out of that semester, they've learned something from me. I've taught them something. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the things that we remember from any given class, I think, are sometimes like random and sometimes they're relevant, and sometimes like I said, it just plants a seed sometimes even. But it's more, I think kind of going back to what you just said, like if you can teach them one thing, if they can truly take away one thing from that experience. I think that's actually even something I mentioned when I was, talking to your class, was if you can take away even just one thing from each class, like how valuable that really is. I mean, you're going to have to know like, okay, basic math skills and stuff to keep going, but like just the true takeaways, and like even like in a math class, like the one takeaway might not be actually math for you. It might be, oh, this is how I'll learn. Like this is, when I take notes this way, it's actually more beneficial. And that could be something that a teacher teaches you, or you learn on your own. But either way, like just taking that away from your class. And
they truly surprise me, because at the end of the year, like I'll do a survey, like what did you enjoy? Did you learn anything? What would you have liked to see? And the things that they will tell me that like, I learned this, I'm just kind of like, you were listening. And even if right now they may not have learned anything, I guarantee you it still has soaked in that brain. And in a couple of years, they're going to either look at that nutrition label, or somebody's going to say something and they're like, oh, I learned that in high school. Yeah, they're going to be like at a family gathering, or they're going to be, in college, and somebody's going to be like, oh, the best way to lose weight is this. And they're like, oh, no, actually, I learned that. Exactly. You need a balanced whatever. Like, it's so interesting, like that trickle-down effect of teacher to student to the rest of the world. Absolutely. We have the same degree, so that is kind of like what I relate to most on, is what like I've went to school for, and the fitness and wellness side of it. And I get at, I have everything from freshmen to seniors. So from 14 to 18, not everybody is going to be as passionate about what I'm passionate about. Yeah. But as long as they are in that classroom and they can get anything out of it, I'm excited. And how do you actually like manage the different ages? Because like those are such a wide range of developments over those 4 years. It is very easy to kind of pick out who my freshmen and sophomore are from my upperclassmen. So again, you have to be able to, connect with each age group, and you have to be able to teach each of those age groups. Like even just like the words that you use, like I feel like terminology that an 18-year-old understands, a 14-year-old's going to be like, what does that word mean? Like, how do you keep it basic enough, but also more like interesting for somebody who is older? So the first couple of weeks, I was talking to them like they were me, like they understood what everything I was saying was. And I finally had a student was like, Miss Allen, I don't know what you're saying. Like, I need you to dumb it down for me. So what I'll do now is I will still speak, anatomically correct terms. I'll still speak how I would if I was talking to someone my age. But then when I use a specific definition or term, I'll also give an alternative, like, okay, well, this also means this, so that they can relate it. So hopefully I'm still able to, be age appropriate with my 17, 18-year-olds, but my 14, 15-year-olds also understand what I'm saying. Right. And I felt really bad because I was like, man, like, you're probably not the only person who feels this way. Like, you have no clue what I'm saying. So that is something like I had to learn, was like, they really don't know, and you have to make it as basic as you can for them. Yeah. It's such a weird combination because they don't know, and then they also, like you said, they don't have the same passion, but they're in there to learn. So it's like, how do you balance the fact that you have to, have to interact with people who don't necessarily care that much, and they don't understand, but you still have to pass that on. That's like triple-edged sword. You really have to just kind of make it as fun for them as possible, and school's not always supposed to be fun. I'm lucky that I have a class that doesn't like require, that they have to graduate high school with, so I can make it more fun for them. And just using like terminology that they understand, making it as fun as possible. So maybe, just maybe, they might be a little bit interested in it. And then realizing that like not everybody is going to tell you they don't understand what you're saying. they're scared. They're scared to like admit like, I don't know what you're saying, or I don't understand what's going on, or they're afraid to ask for help. So I just try to make it to where I never want any of them to feel stupid. I don't want them to feel bad about not understanding. So checking for understanding, like making sure that they understand what I'm saying, they're learning, they know, has been very big for me. And not just assuming, like, because I was like, does anyone have any questions? No one asked anything, that they all understood, because they didn't.
Having that experience of like kind of knowing the curriculum, knowing the information, but also not having like built out like exactly how you're going to teach it. How long did it take you to like get familiar with the process? Like know how long that's going to take you, like revision, like how long did that take for you?
So I literally started teaching, like I got hired the week before school started. So I was drowning the first few weeks. And there is a saying in the teacher world, like your first year is all about survival. And I absolutely hate that. I don't want to have to survive a job. Like that's miserable.
Right.
But I had to figure out real quick what to teach them, how to teach them. And I had to do it on my own. Like it was, here's your key to your room and here's your class rosters. Like everything else was on me to figure out. And so for me, what is most important? What do I want them to learn? How do I make it to where they're going to actually learn?
You know, you said like, here's your key, here's your class roster. Does it feel like there's a different like connectedness to school and to like the school as a whole when you're a teacher versus when you're a student?
So as a student, I don't think I appreciated my teachers enough with everything that they did. And I still am a firm believer, just because you know a content doesn't mean you know how to teach it. And I can kind of see now why that is the case, because you can still be a teacher and not having gone to school for teaching. So even though like I know my content, I feel pretty confident I can teach it well. That's not always the case. So it is very different being a teacher versus being a student. And to all the teachers out there, like, thank you. You don't get thanked enough. It's a very rewarding job, and you don't go into it for pay, that's for sure. But it's different. It is very different.
How long did it take for you to get somewhat comfortable, though, with being like, here's what I'm going to teach. I've created this thing, right, this plan, and then going in and knowing like, okay, this is going to work, like, or like this is going to be, it's not going to be 5 minutes, or it's not going to be like 5 hours. Like, how did you kind of like, how long did it take you to almost get those adjustments taken care of, if you know what I'm saying?
Oh, it's going to be an every school year adjustment. So my first semester, I honestly wish I could apologize to every single one of those students, because I was still learning. My second semester, much easier. But there was a time where I was like, I was happy if like the next day was ready. So it is constantly, as a teacher yourself, you're tweaking, you're working. Like, even though I'm there 7 to 2:30, like I still work outside of school. You're constantly working, and you need to develop yourself always. And I'll always do that. Like, even in the summer, like I'm still working on content for next school year. Right. And every group of students is different. So what one group really liked, your next group might not be. So I'm going off of like past semesters to help me with the next semester. And it's like, I feel confident as far as my teaching abilities and classroom management skills, but I'll never stop working to be like a better teacher or make my lessons better.
Yeah, I never really thought about it, but I guess that first semester kind of is, I would think for a lot of teachers, not necessarily like a test, but you're kind of like seeing what people are still responding to, especially now. Like, I feel like back in the day, maybe a little bit different because the world was moving a little slower and things didn't change as fast. But like now, I mean, the language even changes. Like how kids talk and stuff like that even changes on a yearly basis. Like just the communication,
how they talk, the technology that they use, it is always continuously changing. And I feel like it is so important to stay up to that so you can relate to those kids.
Going back to, kind of that getting that first plan together and walking into the room for the first time. Tell us a little bit about like that experience and what you kind of were feeling during that first day or even like first week, I guess.
So I'll never forget my very first day of school. I was probably more nervous for that than I ever have been for a first day of school in my life, because you're the teacher, and I have 7 classes, 30 kids in each class. Like, that's a lot of personalities each day that you're seeing. So the first week, you're really just trying to get to know these kids, like get to know them so they can get to know you, and then you can go from there. Because if you don't have a relationship built with those kids, they're not going to listen to anything you say.
Yeah.
So that was the main thing, was get to know these students, and then you can teach them something.
Was standing up in front and just like being the one that everybody's looking to, was that weird for you?
It is very weird because like I'm sure when you came as a guest speaker, you probably felt like, oh my gosh, all these eyes are on me and they're just looking at you. There's been a lot of times like you're talking and it's like, can you hear me out there? Am I speaking English? Like, it is very weird. But then like they get comfortable with you and they want to talk to you about everything. You learn more about some of your students than you ever cared to know. Like, and by the end of the like school year, like, you're getting thank you notes, and it's just a great feeling.
It's just weird to think, like, especially in your case, having different age groups, and then you're seeing, like, people that, this year, okay, they're going to be gone next year. Or, this person will be back to school next year. And it's like you're watching these people grow up. You're watching, like, in such a weird time of their life and trying to understand, like, how does this person, because, like, high school is such like it's a weird time, like you have school and that's a big part of your life, but you also have like everything else that goes on around it and like how that affects, did you get enough sleep? Did you go to sleep? Were you up playing video games? Were you up with your girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever? It's like you really have to almost like navigate this minefield of their life within, everything else, but also within the classroom.
Well, and everything at that age is such a big deal to them. It's so important. The world is ending. And so it's like trying to relate to them isn't always easy, but just being there to listen to them and all their craziness. And I'll tell you one thing, they make me feel old so much, but interacting with them, it brings me like back to youth. It makes me feel younger. And I would not want to be a high schooler today. Like, I would not want to trade places with them for anything.
It would be very interesting. I feel like there's like a weird dynamic of being a kid now. Like it's almost, you have so much more, I don't know if it's responsibility, but you have like this freedom of like having the capacity to know more, to like be more places, like just virtually, like, you're just not I think kids aren't as much kids anymore as they used to be.
Like, they have so many different opportunities than we even had, so much more vulnerability with everything that they have access to, with everything that has access to them. Like, they record everything. Like, I couldn't imagine growing up with all that.
So you mentioned at the beginning getting into, you said physical therapy?
Yeah, I thought that's for sure what I was going to be. I was going to be a physical therapist.
What about that? Like, what was the background? Why did you think that was like this path for you?
I thought it was the path for me because I was dead set on healthcare and helping people and making a difference. And I knew I didn't want to do nurse. I didn't want to be a nurse. I also was not like, I knew I couldn't be a doctor because I had to work. Like, focusing on school was not, like, even though I was smart enough, like, I had to work. So med school wasn't going to be it. I had went to UND and, job shadowed their, like, PT program. I was like, yeah, I want to do this. This looks interesting. It's still in the healthcare field. I can help people. I was it wasn't for me. It was a little bit boring, so it just wasn't for me.
That's interesting. Just kind of going back to what we were talking about before, like, these days you would have more resources to know before you go into that. But you said you were more in it for like helping people who were injured, helping people. Did you see yourself like working in a hospital?
I did. I wanted to work at Norton because I was already working there, so I thought that's for sure. Like, I'll be a physical therapist at Norton, and it wasn't for me. It wasn't my calling. Like, I would not have felt fulfilled if I would have did that, and I would have been very upset taking on that student loan debt if I would have went that route.
The world is so much different now.
The personal training side of it has changed astronomically. Like, I feel like, in 2013, that's when I graduated from U of L, it wasn't something that was super popular. Like, people really didn't care about their fitness. And now, almost like, having gone through that, I don't know if you feel this way, but like, everybody thinks there's a personal trainer now and they know everything. And I feel like it's a little bit kind of like discredited to the actual people that went through that and went through that industry. And I feel like it can be so watered down. And like with anything, like I tell my students, make sure whatever you're researching is credible. Like, is it accurate? Like, is this correct? Yeah. It is insane how big it is now.
Oh, it's huge.
And the money that you can make in it is great.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I myself would not be able to do it in halfway do it. Like, I don't know how some people, like, they pretty much could literally sell you this plant right here and tell you it's going to, like, get you fit just by staring at it for 15 minutes. Like, I'm not that type of person.
Right.
So it's just crazy to me, like, how large it's gotten.
If you are somebody who wants to do it right, who wants to start their own thing, that's in and of itself, having a business and the pressure that comes along with that, and, trying to build it up, that takes its own set of information, knowledge, experience. So I think a lot of people don't take that into consideration either. It's like, oh, I have this skill set of, I know how to help people, but how to actually create that and make money and do the setting up a business and do the taxes and do all that stuff that goes along with it. That's like I think that's a part of the industry that I could see in the next maybe 5 years getting more professional and like bigger, like people who are helping coaches and things like that. I can see that being kind of the next big thing.
Well, even if you do know how to do all that, like, there's so much competition out there too. Like, because like I said, everybody thinks they know how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But not everybody's going to be successful at it.
That's definitely the hard truth about doing something for yourself. There's a guy I talked to in here just the other day who, he's been doing it for a long time and working under somebody else and getting his own clients and he has goals that he wants to do X, Y, and Z, and it's taken this long. And it's like a lot of people, especially kids, our kids going to have the resiliency and the kind of in some way like the attention span almost to
the critical thinking skills, the drive, the passion, like to actually do it.
You see, I don't know how many specifically, but you see, I would say a fair number of like really big coaches within Kentucky, like whether that's fitness, like lifestyle only, bodybuilding, or a combination of two. But it just makes me wonder, like, is it going to become more like people under those? Like, is there only going to be a few major brands, if you will, or a few major coaching businesses over time? Because like you said, they might have the information, they might know how to do all those things and have all those skills. And okay, well, I have the coaching skills, but I don't have the business skills, so I'm just going to work for this person. And then there's all of a sudden 5 major coaching companies in Kentucky, whereas of now it's like everybody's kind of doing their own thing.
Yeah. It could probably go to that. I look at it as a consumer, and for me, if I'm paying somebody, I need them to care about me and my goals. And I used to tell people when I was a personal trainer, like, our personalities may just not match. To me, like, your personal trainer, your coach, whoever, you should be able to trust them. They should care about you. They should be there for you. And, you know, if our personalities don't match, you're not going to hurt my feelings if you tell me that. Or, like, I want to try someone else out. Because that's like going to a barber and getting a jacked up haircut and continuing to go to them. Like, your relationship with your trainers, your coaches, your nutritionists should be just of that as with anybody else.
I mean, the relationship aspect, you know, I mean, with your experience in that and working with people, I mean, how do you feel like that has translated into your teaching? Do you feel like it kind of made it like a smoother transition?
Personal training, like, I'm kind of teaching an adult and I'm only teaching one of them, but I'm still teaching them. So in the classroom, I'm teaching 30 plus a day, different personalities all at once, different age groups. But at the end of the day, it's still the same thing. Teach them, teach your client, teach your students.
This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout. Looking for a supplement company that's as serious about your fitness goals as you are? Allsport Pharmaceuticals is here to help. Their top-of-the-line supplements are designed to help you get the most out of every workout with ingredients that have been scientifically proven to enhance performance and recovery. Whether you're a seasoned athlete or just starting out on your fitness journey, Allsport Pharmaceuticals has the perfect supplements to help you achieve your goals. Plus, with their commitment to quality and safety, you can trust that you're getting a product that's both effective and reliable. So what are you waiting for? Take your fitness game to the next level with Allsport Pharmaceuticals. Visit the website today to learn more. And do you still do any other, not necessarily like personal training, or do you do any like consultation or other helping, you know, individuals like that?
So I still have a couple of clients that I train on the side, and I've also started working at Jeff City Mix. They have some great, you know, coaching and just nutrition things. And that's more what I want to focus on is the nutrition aspect, since that's what I teach.
Kind of more fresh on the mind, like, you know, utilizing it, teaching it. I mean, do you feel like learning more about it as well?
Oh, absolutely. Because that's something that is going to constantly change is the nutrition part. Because as you can tell, we've gone through, you know, this diet was great for you, and then like 2 years later it was like, oh, it was so awful and it's doing this. So the nutrition aspect changes just as fast, if not faster, than the whole personal training side of it.
It's amazing like what the little compared to a lot of other people that I keep up with, different scientific research coming out and stuff like that, just like what we are learning in terms of you know, fitness and nutrition, but being able to incorporate that and take that in, but also from a teaching perspective, I'm sure like the validation process behind that. You know, how do you kind of know when to share something versus when to be like, okay, this is just information that I know, if that makes sense?
I'm very open and honest with my students. I pretty much, as long as it's appropriate, it's not off limits for me. Like I shared my before and after photos, like to let them know what my why was. You know, I let them know, like, you know, this is what I've had for lunch today. It's not great. Being honest with them is the most important thing to me, because I'm not going to sit here and lie to them. It doesn't teach them any good habits. Like, we're all human. I'm not going to be like perfect with nutrition. Like, I'm just not. And I don't expect them to be either.
Does it feel like, though, that there is like an added responsibility or like an added, not pressure, but just something there to be like, this is what I'm teaching, so I kind of need to like follow this, like follow my own. Like if I'm telling somebody this is good advice, then I should probably follow my own good advice.
Absolutely. Same with like being a trainer. Like, if you don't look the part, like, how do you expect to gain clients, get clients, and expect them to like pay you if you don't look the part?
since starting teaching, does it feel like that you have put more of like an effort into it or more of a thought into it or anything like that?
Oh, absolutely, because they will literally call you out. They'll be like, Miss Allen, what are you eating? They're like, what's in your cup? Like, they'll call you out. So they hold me accountable too.
It's pretty interesting. I mean, just the dynamic of all that and how that can be on both ends.
It's helpful. Like, I'll do the same thing. What'd you all eat for breakfast? Or what's that you have? Like, and I'll tell them, like, I'll have them. I was like, how many grams of sugar in there? I'll make them read the nutrition label to me. There's not a whole lot that I can do about what they serve in the cafeteria. Public school, public funding. It's going to be cheap, quick, easy, whatever they can get. But I try to make it to where they think about their options. Is there something, a healthier choice that I can do? Maybe they'll bring their lunch. That is what I try to think about. Like, what are you eating? I even like introduce tracking it. Maybe not necessarily as far as macro counting goes. That's, a whole different story with them. But like, if you're looking at what you're eating, you may think you're not eating bad. And then when you start tracking that or you start looking at it, you actually are. You're not as healthy as you think you are. Or like making them measure out how much sugar was in their like sports drinks. And I'm like, you literally drink no water at all today. You've had like 3 energy drinks, a coffee, a Coke, and now a sports drink. Look at all the sugar you've consumed. So like, I'll make them measure it out and weigh it. That's
really interesting. I just read the other day that the average American consumes 17 teaspoons, I think, of added sugar per day, which added up to like something like 56 pounds of added sugar per year.
Oh, absolutely.
It's crazy.
Like, and they don't think about that because that means nothing to them when they're looking at the back of that nutrition label. But when you make them measure it out and put it in a baggie and then add all their little baggies up, they're kind of like, oh, that is a lot of sugar. And I'm like, yeah. And just think if you do this every single day.
Yeah. And you got to carry it around.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of an interesting like experiment for a client. Maybe not for like a student who might be more hard to get them to do it. But if you had like a client and you're trying to make them understand
measure your sugar out every day.
Yeah. Like
carry it in your baggie. Like,
like
as
just
a visual, like
just buy an extra bag of sugar. And every time you eat something that's negative, obviously for eating, natural sugar, whatever, that like an apple. But if you're eating, a cinnamon roll or something, oh, how much sugar is in that? Let's dump that into a bag and carry it around the rest of the day. Put it in your purse or something.
At the end of the day, like, that's a lot of sugar that you've consumed.
Yeah, that's nuts. In your own kind of journey, was nutrition kind of always a big part of it for you? Or did it kind of just like stem off of the initial fitness side of it?
It truly stemmed off the fitness side of it. I didn't realize like how important it actually was and how much of a factor it truly plays. Like, I can go to the gym 7 days a week, do what I need to do, but if you still are eating garbage, it's not going to make any bit of a difference.
Right.
And so like, that was probably the biggest wake-up call for me. Like, I thought I was eating healthy, but when I actually started tracking everything, I realized how horrible at one point in my life I ate. And it was like, it was time to make a difference. It's time to make changes.
Yeah.
Putting weight on was so much easier than putting weight off. And I would never want to have to do that again. Like, I would never want to go through that.
How do you maybe consistently remind yourself of that?
Oh, I have photos all the time that I'll look at or I'll put up. Like, I don't ever want to go back to that. When the doctor literally tells you at like 28 years old, you're like morbidly obese, it's a huge wake-up call.
And how do you kind of manage the balance of those two, of like wanting to continually eat healthy, but also like giving yourself some freedom of like, okay, I'm just going to eat this cookie today or whatever it is?
I feel like a lot of it is like, you can still enjoy certain things. Don't enjoy them every day, all day. Moderation.
Yeah.
Did you and a lot of times I ask myself, did I deserve this? Like, do I deserve to have this like treat? Like, if I didn't, don't eat it.
I think it's such a controversial thing to say, because so many people are like, oh, well, you don't have to earn it, or, I just feel like there's like a negative stigma around that idea, when in reality it's like food, yeah, we're not talking about food in general. We're talking about treats. Like, there's no distinction between like food, which is like real food that you get from the earth, or like meat, and a donut. You know, I think there's no distinction between those two for most people. It's like, oh, this is a food, so I shouldn't feel guilty eating it. The same way that the salad's a food, so I shouldn't feel guilty eating it, or the steak or whatever.
That's the thing is, you know, nutritious food is a necessity. That donut is not a necessity for me to live. That cake is not a necessity for me to live. Yes, I still need my nutritious food. I'm never going to deny myself of that or say I don't deserve to eat. But do you need to go and get your crumble cookie? No.
I don't think so many people look at it like, oh, it's self-care. Maybe it is if you do it every once in a while, but, you know.
Some of y'all are self-caring every single day, all day long.
Right?
I think there's a negative stigma on that, and, you know, I'm not about a body shamer, and I think that there's negative stigmas on both. There's negative stigmas on treating yourself whenever you want to and eating however you want to. There's negative stigmas on being fit and healthy and, you know, just sticking with your green beans, rice, and chicken. Like, I've heard it both. Like, and sometimes it feels like you can't win. I heard it being larger. I heard it like, oh, all you eat is chicken, broccoli, and rice. Like, you hear it no matter what, but at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for you and what makes you happy.
And it just, I never thought about it, but it makes, I think people saying that, it almost makes them sound like they don't understand how blessed we are to even have chicken, broccoli, and rice. Like, there's billions of people around the world who don't have easy access to just go getting that. Like, that would be a treat for them. Like, we live in this world of almost so much ease that good and healthy food is seen as like blah, like, oh, I'd rather have this other thing, or I can't believe that you eat only that. It's so bizarre and backwards.
Absolutely. And we have such a world today where a pill can fix anything. And instead of, you need to change your lifestyle. I'm thankful that I had a doctor that was like, you need to change your lifestyle instead of, oh, well, we'll put you on a pill. We have it's crazy to me how America will just like feed the pharmaceutical company and take whatever it is instead of making a lifestyle change.
It's interesting. I mean, like, how much money truly is behind not just the drugs and the pills and things, but also the chips and the, you know, the snack industry, if you will, and the sugar and all that stuff. I mean, if you really think about over 50 pounds a person, how much money would the sugar producers be losing if people just like, because the recommended, I think, was like 9 per day, 9 teaspoons, and, you know,
no more
for the average,
sugar,
and the average male was almost double that, and females almost triple that. I mean, if you even cut that to just the recommended limit, you would be cutting their money in half right away. So, I mean, it's crazy that there's this fight between like doing what's right for people and helping people, and
money,
even on an individual basis, like doing the right thing and how you feel versus the money behind it.
Money runs everything. It motivates everything. It drives everything.
It's just bizarre to me that it can't be that in a positive way, though. You know, Absolutely. It's like, how okay, yeah, you can make billions off of sugar and prescription drugs, and you know, I'm not bashing all prescription drugs. I think so many people do that. Certainly there's their place for them, especially for people who really, really need them in life or death situations. But
I think we skip lifestyle modifications for a lot of morbidities and go straight to that instead.
I just think there's like a personal responsibility that at some point can't be monetized, and that's the problem. Mm-hmm. That's why there is a problem, is because, I mean, you could certainly like figure out how to like make money motivating people, which people do, and how to educate people. You know, you can make money doing that, but on a large scale, I think the problem is only you can prevent yourself from, you know, a bad lifestyle. And that's a hard thing to make money off of.
And that's fine if you don't want to. Like, again, like, that's your choice. But, you know, don't knock me for mine either.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I do feel like there's a lot of, somebody, I actually never heard the term before, but fit shaming.
Fit shame, fat shame.
Both ways. Like you said before,
it
you
really
really
truly is.
can't win. People will bash you for whatever you're doing. You know, I think something you mentioned before too about the gym and kind of how the nutrition stuff stemmed from that. I think so many people have this idea, like this preconceived notion of the gym is the most important thing. And like, if I can go work out for an hour and feel like I did something, then I can eat whatever I want to eat. I can go and drink, and I can go and
I work out so I can eat. Yeah, absolutely.
They think like, oh, I'm doing this thing, so now I'm going to go reward myself. And having that reward in some ways like took away all of the benefits of the workout you just did. And like, if those people didn't work out, would they be going as hard with the alcohol and the other treats and things like that?
It's truly like you took one step forward and one step right back. Like, you're not getting anywhere doing that.
And then it's sad because people don't. They think it's, oh, I can't do it. It's not working. I might as well just give it all up anyway.
Oh, and that's because we are like a society of like instant gratification. Like, I worked out a whole week and why am I not seeing any results? Like,
right.
Working out does nothing for you. Or I ate healthy all week and nothing happened. Like, it's a waste of time or a waste of money, or it's because we are so used to instant gratification.
Yeah. And I think it's crazy too. You have the opposite perspective. Like, if you work out for a week, you expect these crazy results.
You didn't get fat in a week, so working out for a week isn't going to get rid of it.
Right. But then when some people don't work out for a week, then they start to feel like they're losing all the results too. It's crazy how you can like have your mind can play tricks both ways.
Your mental health and your mental state, it can get you. It can get you. Anything negative in your life is always going to stick out more than the positives. And it's unfortunate, and that's just how it seems like all human brains are. That's what we remember, and that's what we dwell on. I preach positive self-talk a lot. Switch it. Start telling yourself those 5 to 6 months that you went hard. Like, be proud of those. And we're our own biggest critics. Like, we're hardest on ourselves. Like, everything that I like dislike about myself, I won't say never. Rarely do I have people on a daily basis point out to me. Like, it's all mental.
For sure.
Granted, most of these insecurities evolved over some point from things people have said, but like, who cares what that person said? Like, you've literally taken what they've said and you've just ingrained it in your brain and focused on it, even though no one else has said anything about it.
I think, like, too, as a kid, that's one thing interesting to me is, like, our lives are so shaped by how our childhood was, whether that's in a positive or negative or, you know, just like a weird, crazy, life-altering experience, or just the things that our parents tell us constantly, or the things that we hear in school constantly. Like, we could have an event happen or, like, this thought in our head when we're 10 years old, and we spend the rest of our life trying to, like, make up for that, or trying to, like, be better in some way because of that.
I truly think what you hear and everything mentally makes a bigger impact on you than anything physically ever will. Now that I have like young minds in my room, I'm very mindful of how I speak and how I speak to them. I just try to be positive with them and uplift them because they might not be getting that at home.
Yeah. Like,
their home lives, I've learned, I can't even imagine what some of them go through. So giving them what they might not get out of my classroom, like, has been tremendous for me. Some of them have never, like, been told, like, I'm proud of you. So even, like, the littlest thing, oh, I'm proud of you, you turned your work in on time, like, it really, truly does make a difference.
I mean, how do you, like, almost comprehend that, like, when you go home and, like, because you have, you know, you mentioned kind of the rigors of, like, all the work aspect, but after kind of the work is done and you've planned out the next day and, you know, maybe you're going to sleep, does it ever, like, weigh on your mind, like, I have a lot of...
The work is never done. They're always on my mind. If there's a specific student that day that like has said something, I'll think about it. Like, they're never really not on your mind. So making an impression on them in the classroom, that 45 minutes, 5 days a week I get with them is so important to me. My students ask me like, oh, Miss Allen, do you have kids? And I always tell them I have 120 because that's about what I have each semester. And they really, truly do like become like your kids. I'm not a parent, so I can't even imagine what that's even like. But you care so much about them and you want them to do well. You want them to be happy. You want them to succeed. And they really are. And you almost kind of, at the end of the day, don't have anything left for yourself. But that's why I do go to the gym. That's why I take care of myself so I can pour back into them the next day.
And how do you feel like you're going to utilize this summer to kind of do it all in terms of like, I got to give back to myself. I have to kind of think about myself for a little bit now, but also have to get ready for what's coming next, like in just a few months.
So kind of how I have it is that I'll be gone quite a bit in July on vacation. So that's like my me time. Take that time before school starts to focus on myself. And then like the month of June, do like an every other like week, do some work. It's all about balance. It's all about learning to say no, put yourself first, take care of yourself, because you really do have to pour into those kids because they're not getting it anywhere else.
It's a big part of life is high school.
It truly is. Like, it seems silly to think about, like, oh, it's high school, it's not real life, but like graduation was on Sunday, and then like there's some of these kids that are like, they're in the real world now. They're going to college or they're entering the workforce. So it is a big deal. I'm just fortunate, like I said, that like my class is, quote, a fun class. It's an elective class. So they get to relax a little bit in my room. They don't have that pressure of, I have to pass geometry or I have to, pass English. It's like, it really truly is like a little break for them.
And you get to do some really interesting stuff in your class. I know you mentioned the cooking and the podcast that you did, which I got to listen to some that were good. They were definitely some beginner podcast hosts, I think. So it'll be interesting.
We're going to work on that. We're going to make it a little more structured, maybe give them a little bit more freedom, because I kind of gave them the topic that they had to speak on. So may give them a little bit more freedom. And the thing is like the lesson wasn't about them like being podcasters. Like public speaking, just speaking in general presentations is so hard for them. So I was like, here's a great way to do it and make them think that that's not what I'm doing. And then when I was like, oh, we're going to have like a podcast host come in, I'm going to send them to you. Oh man, they thought it was the end of the world. They were like, this is so embarrassing. The public speaking class we had to take in college, it was like, all right, convince me of something, teach me something. Like it's not natural flowing conversation.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel like even when you are presenting, that's what you should have with them. Like that's how you connect to them. That's how you have a relationship with them. Talk to them like you're having a conversation, not like you're up there on a mission.
And I feel like too, I just thought about this, but like, I mean, how many people are having conversations anymore versus a Snapchat conversation, even with people in the same room? So it's probably even more of a foreign language just being able to communicate nowadays.
It's hard. It's a struggle. Like not necessarily like, I don't feel like I have a hard time with that, but like when I look around my room, just if they're not in there with anyone they know, they just have like such a hard time with it. It's
a weird kind of thing to think about, like more people, especially like more people now working at home versus in an office.
Yeah.
Like kids being more on their phone
and
it's like even in a group we're feeling more isolated just because of a phone. Like you're talking to somebody in a different city versus someone that's sitting right beside you, which is just crazy. Now that where does that lead? Human connection and communication, conversation.
Or even like when you go out with your friends, like you're on their phone, and I'm like, how are you listening to anything I'm saying when you have like little baby in your ear? Like you're not, like you're gonna be the first person to ask me what you're supposed to do, even though I already gave instruction
5 times.
That's a struggle.
I can only imagine. Like I remember when we were in school, nothing was allowed. Like when I was in school, like school I went to, nothing was allowed. Like if your phone rang, my phone rang one time and it buzzed, and I was like freaking out in my head, like, did anybody just hear that? Did anyone? And I didn't even take my phone out of my locker most days because I just didn't want to have something happen. I mean, it was a completely different world.
That's how it was when I was in school, but sadly, it's more relaxed, one, just because of all the incidences that have happened with, like, school shootings. So now it's, like, more of, like, a safety thing to be able to get a hold of a parent, and also because of COVID, like, you know, it was a whole different world for them. So
Yeah.
We weren't allowed phones, but again, back in my day, like, you had to pay 25 cents to send a text message, so you weren't really doing that anyways.
I think there's two very different ways it could go in terms of technology and health, but hopefully
education, all of it. You're gonna have both sides, like the pros, the cons, the negatives, the supporters. Like, we've had that forever, and we're gonna still have that. But I think we have some amazing people and ingenious minds, and I think it's gonna be great.
I appreciate you coming in and sharing some time with me here on this podcast, on this episode, on the weight room. It was great to get you in.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.